is the upper third of practices commercially. So that may be, 8 to 12,000 number from that perspective, and sort of what our target is for field force over time. And then what we're trying to achieve there is, significant share in that portion. We feel that represents more than half of the dollarized sales in the United States as well. So that's where we're competing in the 2 to 3 year time frame. Then lastly, we complement that with sort of the HintMD services offering. And so that services offering really allows practices to become more efficient and with a verticalized payment solution, and offer differentiated experiences for the consumer as well.
Sure. Thank you, Toby. So maybe let me just pick up on the fillers part of the business. You had a great launch. Numbers were impressive, $10 million in 4Q. And as we think about the progress now, aesthetics, we are clearly seeing a significant pent-up demand, which has been rebounding across since 3Q. The segment has only gone on from strength to strength. Any incremental updates towards this quarter that you can share? And secondly, updates on RHA1 approval and when we could see it?
Great. So we've guided that the RHA1, I'll take your questions backwards. And then if I forget anything, Balaji, please remind me. But RHA1 approval, we've guided a second half. We've noted in our fourth quarter earnings call in February that the PMA application has been submitted by our partner Teoxane SA. So that starts the clock on that review for the RHA1. And just for reference, the RHA1, we're really excited to bring that to the market. This is sort of the finest in terms of viscosity, if you will, the lightest viscosity that we're going to introduce to the marketplace. And these are for fine lines around the lips or perioral lines, known as barcodes or smokers lines. From what we've heard from investigators in the US who've participated in these clinical studies, they've really liked the performance characteristics. We think it's a nice incremental add-on. It's something nice to retrain and reintroduce into the office, and we'll fit into that and make it, again, us very relevant for that segment. And, continued relevance and continued innovation in that is important for the representative's call point and important to meet the needs of today's consumers. So that's the RHA1 story. We'll be excited to be introducing that, sort of in the coming time frame. Taking a step back and thinking about the aesthetic market as a whole, you're absolutely right. There's been broader macro trends over the last decade or so that's bringing this medicine to be more of a lifestyle than a vanity play. And so I see those trends being accelerated by what we'll call the Zoomification of the world. People are spending more and more time seeing their face, looking at screens under our virtual. And I do believe that a part of our virtual interactions will continue to remain even when the pandemic is over. The people will be working from home more. And our expectation is that there'll be more of awareness of what people see. And, to see yourself in the mirror for 4 to 5 hours a day sort of will augment sort of already strong trends in sort of consumer behavior, we feel. So I think that the macro trends are set up for all players in the facial injectable market, to be honest with you. And so we think that bodes well for the industry as a whole. So I think the tide is rising. And then when you think about sort of launch trajectory of our given product in the RHA, which is sort of the last topic of the, I think your line of questions, I think we were very proud of the fourth quarter. We were proud of the numbers we put up. And more importantly, we were proud because the promise of the product, Dynamic Wrinkles and Folds, in the hands of, the skillful injectors and in the faces of the people that they used it in, fulfilling that promise of hitting that natural, clean beauty for dynamic wrinkles and folds. Secondly, we have a slightly different go-to-market approach. And again, what we've talked about is going to market with a different sort of approach in sort of that no advertised price, where we're not trying to be everybody to everything, but for the discerning practices who are willing to pick up that, we're going to sort of try to break a slight commoditization of sort of our skillful practitioners' services and skills that was happening at the med spa. So this allows us to introduce innovation in the hands of skillful practitioners, where they're able to realize a premium for their time and skills in that marketplace. So really happy with the business model that we're introducing into the marketplace, and that sort of going deeper versus broader strategy. Lastly, there's a seasonality component to any sort of medical aesthetic practice, and you typically see the fourth quarter being the strongest season. And so that's typical from sort of a manufacturer's behavior and also consumer demand. A little bit tougher to suss out this year in sort of the face of a pandemic, but we still feel that there's strong seasonality trends.
I hear your point on that. And maybe just one final question on the filler side. As RHA1 gets approved, do you see that being synergistic with existing filler lines, with existing RHAs? Or is there likely some cannibalization or minimal that could play out? Or is it going to be a synergistic add-on?
That's a good question. It's a little bit more nuanced than in a specific cannibalization. If you were to read the labels of RHA 2, 3, and 4, that is, you'll see that they have different viscoelastic properties, and they're indicated for different depths, of injections. And that's true for RHA1. So while there's probably some utility of other fillers around that area, and there will be some displacement of, for instance, RHA2 in that area, there'll be some also an incremental call point for our sales reps to talk about a product that was specifically designed for these perioral lines here. And so I think it's an incremental add, but it's more from fitting the need of a call point there. Lastly, it's important to note that perioral lines requires the least amount of filling compared to sort of other areas in the face. And so while it's incremental, the utilization of product is a bit smaller. And that's consistent with what we've seen for the SKU mix of the RHA line of fillers in Europe that Teoxane SA has introduced.
Great. Maybe that's a good point to leave the fillers and shift to HintMD. Clearly, you have significantly changed the dynamics or equation around how aesthetics businesses from a